All right. So here's the next question. Our third question is from Laura McKean, and they're asking, what are the best shoes if you're a supinator and coming off an Achilles tendonitis injury? So I'm going to kind of kick this one off, and then I'll let Matt kind of talk about it, Mr. Achilles. So just with what you're doing with your dissertation. But the first thing that I read in this question are a couple things, like links that are being made that we don't know if they exist. So
right.
the question includes that you're a supinator and you're coming off an Achilles injury. And so there's kind of this assumption that those two things could be linked together. There's also an assumption that a type of shoe is better for someone with supination, that you can match that together. There's the assumption that they are supinating, and we don't, Laura, we don't know you. So we don't know how you know that or how you've come to the supinating conclusion, but there's a lot in there about connections being made between supination and Achilles injury, supinator and shoe choice, Achilles injury and shoe choice. So there's a lot of connections that we could talk about. And I think it's just worth knowing that, or considering that we don't have perfect answers for all of those links. Those aren't givens for the most part, but that's what I wanted to bring some nuance to the question. But Matt, why don't you take it away from there?
Yeah, so obviously the answer depends. So if you are someone who truly supinates, it's not surprising given some of the early suggestion, everybody talked about, pronation uncontrolled pronation, this is the right term because pronation and supination are normal biomechanical motions. Excessive or uncontrolled motion, or you having extra and then you overtraining beyond what your body's capacity to deal with that force is, potentially can lead to some issues, right? Because both excessive motion in those planes and those supination, pronation, or triplanar motions, mean there's a couple different movements happening at the same time. Either one excessively, if you are overtraining or training beyond what your body can recover from, you do that rotation of the tendon that happens from either one of those as you shift can cause some irritation. However, you need to figure out if correcting that actually changes what you feel. One of the common misconceptions is, I see this movement, this is my problem, I need to change it. If you don't make that assumption, don't assume that because you supinate or pronate that is the cause of your Achilles tendon or any issue. You need to find out and check. So I'm going to give you some answers of what might help with supination. It's going to be very general. But don't make that assumption, because a lot of people go, they pick what they think is the low hanging fruit. And the problem is that's not related to the tree or the bigger issue. So that
and
might just
to reiterate
happen to be hanging
too,
there. Yeah.
And just to reiterate, the person asking this question may have done a ton of work on the front end before asking this question. So we're not saying this to you, Laura.
Yeah.
This is to just in general. If you're approaching something like this, these are just considerations you should have. I just don't want to feel like we're, saying these things to Laura.
Yeah. Laura, sorry, Laura. We
nothing
care.
Personal.
That's personal. We just get this a lot. So to address that, if supination and you are looking to give yourself a little bit more control over that motion and have a shoe that helps you with that, you're going to want to look for something that has sidewalls on the lateral side. So a really good example. This is not what I would probably suggest. But something that has like a bump on the midsole that comes up a little laterally. It's a sidewall, so that's going to help create a little resistance there. What? That's lateral.
That's the medial side.
That's the lateral side.
Lateral. My bad. My
that's
camera
okay.
Guys.
Yeah, the Rebellion flash that I'm holding up. I forget that people are also listening to this, so I should probably talk through what I'm actually pointing at. Nathan sitting over there rolling his eyes going, we've been doing this for how many years? And he's forgotten that. A sidewall on the lateral side can be very, very helpful. So for people that are watching, the Rebellion Flash is a larger one on the lateral side, which is really helpful. The other thing that can be really helpful is any kind of lateral sole flare. So anything that kind of comes out the side. The shoe, you're probably asking about a training shoe, but if you're not, a shoe that's been on the top of my mind that has a lot of lateral sole flare has been the Asics Metaspeed Sky Plus, actually. Only because it's not as firm as a lot of super shoes, and it tends to have a lot of motion, not a lot of motion, it has a lot of resistance to lateral motion. I feel that because I get pushed really heavily medially with that shoe. Another possible option, so Nathan grabbed that, is the Asics Super Blast. And the reason that might be a good issue, you got to make sure if that thing is lining up with your mechanics. Initially, that shoe actually bugged me a little bit because it was so stiff, but it's a good shoe that's got a lot of sole flare side to side. It breaks inherently. Yeah, it once, and then it's got a decent rocker once it breaks in. So I think the two things that would be helpful would be lateral sole flare or lateral sidewall, because there's not a lot of shoes that have lateral posting. So it's easy to kind of go, and if you take a look, we've got some stuff on the website that talks about that, but a shoe that's stable neutral is definitely going to be something that might interest you, as well as a shoe that has a good forefoot rocker that lines up with your mechanics. Just to take some pressure potentially off the Achilles initially. But again, as Nathan mentioned earlier, you don't want to take away that load. We know from tendon pathologies, you need to reintroduce that load, and because you want that tendon to adapt. And you need to be aware, even though this is not what you asked, when you start on this journey, if you really want to address this, you got to load it appropriately. And this is going to take consistent loading for 9+ months. That's how long it takes. At least that's with tendinopathy. I think it was tendinitis, but most tendinitis are usually tendinopathies by the time you figure it out. So
yes,
so to answer your question more succinctly, lateral sole flare, which is where the sole extends out toward the outside, or a lateral sidewall would be probably helpful for you. But please try that out and let us know if it actually helps. In
combination with things like rocker and drop that are known to decrease some loading of those things. But the more important part is not the shoe. And we say that a million times, but in this situation, the shoe is the ancillary, but it's the next logical step. Oh, I'm ready to start running again. Is there something I should do? And these could be tools for you.